What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This I'm going to bring you my first impressions and initial thoughts on this is the Tamron 35mm 1.4. This is for the Canon mount, and this is one of their newer lenses. This is their SPDI USD lens. I think it was manufactured in 2019 or is when it originally came out, so it's one of the newer 35mm 1.4. I think the Sony G Master 1.4 is the most newest out there when it comes to 1.4, more your pro grade lenses. So this lens retails for $8.99. I picked it up used for $6.49 through Allen's Camera, and I'm going to go through why I got this. I currently have the Canon R6, and while this is an EF version, there's no RF equivalent or even anything close. I've had a lot of really good 35mm lenses. So I previously had the 35mm 1.8 IS for the RF mount, and I found it, one, to be pretty slow to focus with the STM motor. It was great for video, but for photo I found it did not do very well, and I found that the images just weren't special. They were what you would get out of any $400 1.8 lens out there. I found that previously had the Nikon Z system a while back, and the 35mm 1.8 for that had a lot more character. So the RF 35 1.8 just didn't have much character with it. And previously I've had the Canon 35mm 1.4, the first version, which is what I was originally looking to get, but that's a really old lens, and it's still, at least what I found, it was like $700 is the cheapest one I could find. It seems hard to come by. In the 35mm 1.4 version 2, I'm not paying $1,400, $1,200 for an EF lens to adapt for the Canon R system. So I went with this copy, and my first impressions is that it's a little bit larger than I would like. I've also owned the Sony 35mm 1.4 G Master lens. That's the best 35mm lens I've ever used. The Canon one, the Canon 35 1.4 would be second in line, and this is probably up there with that. So this lens is super sharp, focuses really quick, accurately. It's similar to like the USD motors, or the ultrasonic motors on the Canon side of things. It's similar to that. Has really good background blur. It focuses well on the Canon R6 with the adapter. It seems to be in line with even the Sony G Master 35 1.4, which was an extremely fast focusing system. I've been really happy with that. The images have been really good. I did have to do a firmware update with this, so I had to get the embodied image stabilization on the Canon R6 to work. So I did have to rent one of those and do the firmware, which is kind of a pain to get the IS to work, the image stabilization to work on the R6. But besides that, it's been flawless. This thing's weather sealed, which is another thing I wanted, because I generally use my lenses not in really rainy or anything environments, but I've done a lot of shooting in the snow with our little toddler when we were out sledding. When we went to the beach, I used a lot of the lenses out there. So while I don't think weather sealing is necessary, it is nice to have. So that's it so far. I've been really happy with it for the price point. I think for the price, this and the Sigma 35 1.4 art lens, those I think are better options than any of the Canon. I'm sure the Canon 35 1.4 version 2 is better than this in a million ways, but I found for the price point, this was the way to go. It's just a little heavy. That's probably the only thing, is that it's a little bit on the heavier side. I think it does have a standard, I think it's 72mm. Doesn't say in here. Nope, there it is, 72mm filter thread, which is nice. This is actually weather sealed too, so technically you don't have to put like a UV filter or anything on the front to get weather sealing, so you have complete weather sealing for this lens. I don't know how the longevity of it. I've probably only taken 100 shots with it. I haven't had a whole lot of time with it, but for a general kind of first impressions, I've been happy with it. Nothing fancy. There's not a whole lot of anything. I mainly have just shot our toddler with this. And I've done some video work with it. It does really well with video. So we'll see. Whenever Canon releases an RF 1.2 or 1.4 35, which I think they're rumored to release in the fall of 2022, pending. They were supposed to release it last year, at least what Canon rumors had up. So hopefully it gets released and all my problems will be solved, because I really love the 35 1.4, and then maybe a super cheap 50. I have the RF 50 1.8 because I paid like $100 for it. It seemed like a no-brainer. And then something a little longer, like the 135, the RF or the EF. I would do the EF F2 version right now because there's no RF equivalent, and that will probably cost a lot, so I probably won't be able to afford it anyways. And this is what I use for 90% of my photos, maybe 75, but it's a very heavily used lens. So that's it. I'll get a more long-term review of this up as I go. If you have any comments, questions, leave them below, and have a good rest of the day, weekend, whatever is out there, and I'll see you guys next time.